Okay, so let's get straight into this video and talk about Q4 and the strategies that you can take. And the strategy that I'm going to take going forward. So I know it's quite easy to see what other people are doing for their Q4 strategy, and a lot of people are banging out hundreds and hundreds of books onto KDP in prep for Q4, and that's great. And people are spending tons and tons of money on ads as well, which again is great. However, it's not realistic for every single person that wants to try and make sales for Q4. So of course we have things like budget and time and lack of experience that need to be taken into consideration. So in this video, I'm going to give you my thoughts on how you can optimize your sales in Q4 if you're a beginner with no money, and what I'll personally be doing as someone I consider to be an intermediate in this domain. Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to start with what I think is going to be a lot of people's biggest mistake with Q4, and that is getting overhyped by seeing what other people are doing in terms of volume of book. So the temptation here is just to bang out and to produce as many low content or medium content books as humanly possible and hope that some of them stick and do well for Q4, which I'm sure that can work. But I always think the more books that you put out there, the more chance that you have of something going wrong, and the quality of those books, they surely can't be particularly good in the first place if you're producing so many. So the first thing is, I don't think people should panic with Q4. I don't think they should rush these books out. I think we should still focus on our quality. So how do I think that you should approach Q4 when you don't have much of a budget to spend on ads or to spend on hiring people for your work? So the obvious type of book to go for here is going to be low content books. Okay, so my thoughts here for low content books during Q4 are going to be things that people feel passionate about and things that are likely to be gifted to someone else. Okay, so obviously we're going to be thinking Christmas mainly for things that are going to be gifted. So to give you an example of the things that I went for last year with my low content books were things like bucket journals, password logbooks, fitness planners. And if I had to recommend one thing, especially if you're doing low content books, that you look into is to producing books that have animals on them. So for example, like this here, people are absolutely wild about cats and dogs especially. And to give you an example from last year, I sold, I think it was some sort of planner, but it had a picture, a very cute picture of a dog on it. And during November and December especially, it sold like absolute crazy. And it was just because mainly that it had this cute picture of the animal on it. So when you're doing your niche research and when you're having your books made for Q4, I would definitely recommend looking at producing books with animals on them, because like I say, people will love them and people will love to gift them for people that love them as well. And of course, if you're going to be using images like this, you need to make sure that you have commercial usage for them to put on your book cover. So always check into that first. Okay, so if you are struggling to find niches, then the one recommendation for paid software that I do use myself is bookbolt.io. And this cuts a ton of time out from actually just searching Amazon for niches. Now, you don't need this. You can do all your niche research on Amazon. But for me, I like to do a lot of it through bookbolt.io. So this is just over $10 a month, but if you sign up through me, you're going to get 20% off whatever plan that you pick by using the code in the description. So if you're interested in BookBolt, make sure you use that code. Obviously, I get a small commission for you doing that, but you will ultimately save money from doing it, so it makes sense for all of us. Okay, and just to quickly demo BookBolt here, I've come into the product search here and just typed in cats, because we know that cats are going to be selling. Anything cat related, dog related, animal related during Q4 is going to be selling quite well. I've just come into the product search here, typed in cats, and we're going to get some ideas as to what type of books are selling. Okay, so I don't just use BookBolt to check out the BSRs and be like, hey, that's a good BSR. If that makes sales, then I make sales. I like to do my niche research in a way where I'm looking at what type of theme we have going for these type of books. Okay. So for example, if I was doing notebooks, what I can see here already is that this type of, I don't know what you would call it, but lots of different cats on the screen, on the paper, sorry. And we have one here as well, which is doing quite well. That seems to be quite popular. So you could do your own version of that quite easily by outsourcing it somewhere like Fiverr or Upwork. If you can do these type of designs yourself, then you are absolutely sorted for Q4 and you should absolutely spend the time doing that. Okay, so BookBolt, find yourself tons of niches here. We've got color by number cats, funny cat coloring books, composition notebooks, weekly planners. We've already found a few niches here by doing not much, so I would absolutely recommend that you use BookBolt in order to cut down some time. Which leads me on to a point that I've spoken about quite a few times here on my channel, and that is to always make your designs unique and have a unique spin with your designs. And if you've watched my channel before, you know that I don't believe in copying other people's work. I always like to take what I think is selling quite well on Amazon and then try and add my own unique spin to it. So I'm going to give a quick example here. I'm just going to do this without even preparing this, and I've just gone for Dog Planner Calendar 2021 to 2022, just to give you an idea of what I think you should be doing to stand out. Okay, so for example here, as you can see, we have this type of book here. Now it's selling quite well. It's got a 1-star review, so this could be something that's quite popular. It's dog related. It's kind of funny. I don't find it funny, but some people obviously do find it funny. But what you could do if you were doing this type of book, if you're doing a dog calendar for 2021, 2022, I assume this is just a normal monthly calendar, but it has a dog on the front. What I would try and do is to have a unique interior made, so to outsource from Fiverr just for a couple dollars and have a unique interior made that has a somewhat dog theme on the inside, so like some paws or something like that, or related to what's actually happening in this picture, and then try and have a funny caption on the front that is related to what's happening in the picture as well. So that way that I have a completely unique book, a unique idea that nobody else has on Amazon. Okay, so that's my theory here, is that if we have a low budget and we're not going to be running ads to our books, then we need to do something where we can create the book for a low price. So we could have the cover made ourselves. We could do that in somewhere like Canva, and we can outsource the interior from somewhere like Upwork. And you need to make some job offerings on Upwork and get a really low price, because this is very simple work and very quick to do. And for Q4, we need to be focusing on niches and topics that people are passionate about. So for example, here I've gone with animals. People absolutely love animals. And then we can focus on things that are likely to be gifted to other people. So for me, last year, for example, I did fitness planners, which I know that people would be buying in December for Christmas for people to use in January, because everyone's going to feel fat in December and want to try and get fit in January. Okay, so regarding all this, I know someone at some point is going to ask, how many books should I have made for Q4? And when should I start producing those books? Obviously, you should start producing right now. You're running out of time, so now is the best time to get going for this. As for how many books should you produce, well, this is something that you need to take your time into consideration and your skill levels into consideration as well. And of course, your budget on top of that. So if you don't have much budget, then you're going to spend more time producing the books yourself. If you don't have much skill in producing these books, that's going to add more time itself as well. And in result, you're going to either have, if you're trying to do lots of books, you're going to have low quality books that come out. But if you're trying to do high quality books, then you're going to have less out there for Q4. So my recommendation is that you spend as much time as you can to produce a good book, okay? So to give you some perspective, I am outsourcing most of my work, but I am also creating some of the covers myself. And for Q4, I am not aiming for any more than 50 good books for Q4, okay? And if I could give one more tip here in terms of people that are producing their own books, it would be to not get disheartened by people telling you that you need to focus on quality. Now, that is absolutely true. You need to focus on quality. But if you are making these books yourself and you quite simply cannot produce something that looks spectacular that a graphic designer can do, then you can't do it. The quality of your book depends on your levels of skills. Now, Amazon KDP, independent publishing, it is accessible by everyone, and everyone has the right to put their books out there. Okay, so as long as you're not producing books that look absolutely terrible, they have grammar mistakes, issues with the front cover where things aren't aligned properly, or you're producing misleading content, then in my eyes, that is good quality, okay? But of course, you should always be striving for better quality until you can get to those levels of actual high quality, okay? So if you've been producing books, then you'll know how long it's going to take you to produce one type of low content book, for example. And if that takes you a week, then you can look at just doing one book per week all the way up to Q4, okay? Or all the way up till December or halfway through December, okay? And I know it can seem slightly disheartening and make you panic slightly if you see other people, especially people that are doing well, putting out like hundreds and thousands of books onto KDP. I would say don't worry about that too much. Me personally, I won't be putting out anywhere near that many. I'm going to be trying to focus on niche and quality, and I recommend that if you don't have much money to spend on Amazon, that you do the same thing as well, okay? Okay, so if you have absolutely no budget whatsoever, then you're going to obviously need to start doing the covers and the interiors yourself. Now, interior design isn't something that I do myself, so therefore it's not anything that I teach on this channel. But there are plenty of other channels out there where you can learn how to do simple lined journals and things like that. But my recommendation for covers and how you should pursue your publishing when you don't have any money to put into it, I would personally use Canva. And what I would recommend is that you maybe try and do these sort of funny minimal type designs for your book, which actually can look quite high quality. So especially if you don't have any design skills like I don't, you don't need to have that level of skill to produce something that people want to actually buy. So if you design something like a planner like this, for example, where we had 2021-2022 planner, and it has the little thing written underneath that as well, then what you could do is try and do your own version of something like that, but try and make it funnier or wittier or edgier or whatever you can do with it. And in these situations, these are the type of things where you need to use your brain a bit more. So if I was doing something like a planner for next year, so 2021-2023 planner or whatever people buy for planners, then I'd probably have something related back to the last year where things have been absolutely terrible. So it would be something like Good Riddance 2021 or something like that. Okay, so just one completely random tip here that I found, and in my opinion looks much nicer on the eye. When it comes to creating these simple books, you need to make sure you have, the right font here. The font is basically everything when it comes to these really simple type of books. But outside of that, when it comes to the color of your book, the best type of color that I found worked for me, especially last year when making Q4 sales, was just this kind of off black color. So I can't give you the exact code here, but something like this that isn't just black, that looks a lot nicer to me. And yeah, a lot of my low content books last year that had this sort of color did quite well. Okay, could just be a coincidence, but for me, I think that looks nice. Okay, so just to give one more example here, because I know I'm going through this quite quickly, so just kind of step by step here, what I would do is, for me, I'm going to come across to somewhere like BookBolt and do my niche research. Going to come here and select the logbook category. I'm going to type in something like funny. I'm going to scroll down until I see something that catches my eye that has a good BSR ranking. So this here, for example, BSR of just under 300,000. It's a scuba diving logbook. It's a very simple design. People are obviously buying it, and I'd imagine that scuba diving is something pretty specific. So I guess people would buy that for someone they know that scuba dives during Christmas. So I'd imagine it'd be quite popular during that time. Like pretty much everything else during Christmas, it's going to be popular. So if I did a little bit more research on Amazon and saw that diving logbooks were selling quite well, I could then try and come up with my own type of simple design and do that in Canva. Okay, so with Canva, we could use some of their elements to create our own unique design in this niche. Okay, so it's not something I can think of off the top of my head because I know nothing about scuba diving. Okay, so obviously it needs to be a bit more than just having a picture of a scuba diver. This needs to be relevant to the niche. It needs to be funny. It needs to really talk to the person that's going to be buying it or using it. I don't know anything about scuba diving and I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but the theory is here that you take what is selling well, simple designs, and then you put your own unique spin on them. Okay, and that was my terrible effort there trying to think of something for a scuba diving logbook. Let's move away from that ASAP. Okay, so that's people with very low budgets that we're looking at here. So when it comes to people that actually have some money to outsource their work and to actually send ads to their books as well, I'm currently in that position where I'm happy to spend some money on outsourcing. So most of my work is now outsourced, mainly the interiors and some of the covers that I can't do myself. I'm outsourcing them, and I'm also spending some money on ads. Okay, so if you're in this position like me, then hopefully this part of the video is going to be helpful for you, because I'm going to share with you what my plan for Q4 is going to be. So straight into this, what I've been doing is creating coloring books and activity books mostly. And I've been using Upwork.com to outsource all of my images. Okay, so this leads me to my first, and it's a very important point here, and that is to make sure that the work that you're getting back from Upwork is 100% unique, because recently, and this has happened to me before, and I'm sure it happens to other people as well, is that people are trying to rip you off on Upwork. Even if you're paying quite good money, people will still try and rip you off. So when it comes to having content made on Upwork, and if you're doing coloring books or activity books and you're having people design things for you from Upwork, I'd highly recommend that you start doing lots of online checks to make sure that these images aren't taken or traced from somewhere else online. So what I've been using, what I do is I come to Google and I typed in image plagiarism checker, and then I come down to this one here, which is the duplicate checker reverse image search. I click on this, and then I simply upload the image that someone has sent me from Upwork. I upload it into here, and all this does really, it just links you to other websites, but I just find it quite convenient to do it this way. It's got loads of ads on it, which is kind of annoying, but let's just search for a similar image here. So what it's going to do, it's going to let us quickly check all the way through Google and Bing and whatever these other ones here are as well. So the main ones that I search are the Google here and the Bing and whatever that one is, and also this one here, which is called TinEye. So TinEye is one that you can use by itself, but I would recommend that you check through Google and Bing as well for plagiarism. So let's do the TinEye check, and then let's do the Google check as well. Okay, so for this one, for example, we could see that this image has been used here on Redbubble before, which would mean that the image isn't unique. Now, actually, this is one that's just taken off of Canva, so it's not one that anyone's outsourced for me. This is just an example, but you can see the image has been used before. So if we imagine this is something that someone had sent us and they're telling us that this is a unique work, then we can just use these searches here and just check that it's not available anywhere else online, because obviously things like Canva images are going to be accessible online just because they exist online. But we want 100% unique work, and if people are copying other people's work, it is an infringement of other people's copyright, and we should avoid that at all costs. Okay, so that's what I've been doing in terms of just making sure that the work that I get is unique. And what I've started to do now with hiring people from Upwork is to talk to the person that I'm interested in hiring for a bit and make sure that they send one sample image that is very specific. So for example, if I was doing a Halloween coloring book, and I would say to them, let's do one sample for $5 or whatever. And what I want you to do here is I want you to do a picture of a skull that has a worm crawling into its right eye, and in its left eye it has a shiny diamond, or something like that. Something very specific that they just can't copy off the internet. And then from there, once they've delivered the image, you can then go ahead and do all these other checks as well. So it doesn't take long to do. It's definitely going to be worth it just to protect yourself in the long run, okay? Okay, so what type of coloring books and activity books am I having made? So I'm going to have a couple made for hopefully in time for Halloween. I've never had any type of coloring book or activity book made for Halloween before, so I can't give any insight into how well that sells, but it's a pretty big event, so we'll see what happens. Okay, so other than that, I'm going to be looking at kids books, and again, if you want some inspiration, you can always use bookbolt.io like I have been doing here, and you can get some really good ideas for what type of kids coloring books you want to have made. So if you go through this, we can see that we have tons and tons and tons of different niches. I'm not going to specifically pick on any because you need to do your niche research for anything that you find. But Q4 parents are obviously going to be buying their kids lots of stuff, and I do think that people are going to be more inclined, especially this year, to buy their kids something that has some sort of educational value on top of just being a coloring book. So for example, this one here is going to have things like numbers, shapes that you need to identify and things like that as well, just to make it a bit more educational for their child as well. So that's something I'm pursuing for this Q4 myself. And other than that, I am going to be looking into doing only a small amount of low content books. I know some people are pushing notebooks like crazy this year, and that's fine. I just don't have the desire to produce notebooks or that many low content books. But what I have been doing is, as we discussed at the start of this video, about putting our own unique spin on existing books that are selling well, or existing niches that are selling well. And to try and take things one step further, what I've been doing now that we have this A+ content where we can kind of jazz up our description and make it look nicer. So if you don't know what the A+ content is yet, it basically allows us to put nicer graphics onto our description and really try and sell our book more. Okay, so A+ content is basically this here, where you can kind of just put in these nicer looking graphics. You can show off the interior of your book. So that's what I'm going to be doing for my lower content books, is to actually have a nice interior made. So not just generic lines or, you know, just the most boring interior that you can think of. If I'm going to be able to show off my interior, then I want the interior to be good. I want it to look really nice, and I'm going to show it off using the A+ content. Okay, so for example, if I was having something like a planner made that had a cat theme to it, then I would want the interior to have something like cats in it, or to have paw prints on it, and just be a little bit more playful than just being boring lines like it's being sold thousands by thousands of other people on Amazon. And then once I've done that, I can take a snippet of that and then show the interior in my A+ content here, just so people can see that what they're getting is going to be a bit more specific to the niche that they're buying in, and more specific to the thing that they love. And hopefully that will help convert into more sales. Okay, so on top of all of that, if you do have some money that you can spend outside of just outsourcing work, is that you can look at spending on Amazon ads. I think most people know by now this is something that's very hard to directly make profit with. So to make money back directly on your ads. And I think now what we can use Amazon ads for, even if we're losing some money on them, is to make sure that our books are getting ranked higher organically on Amazon. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick example of what I've done here for a coloring book that's already been out. I released it a few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, and I've been running ads to it. Okay, so it's this one here that has an ACoS of 30%, which is, no, it's not amazing, but I don't really care too much as long as though it's getting some sales on it. So it's at 24 sales, which means it's been bumping it up the rankings in Amazon. Okay, so once it gets bumped up the rankings in Amazon, you're going to start seeing more organic sales, provided that people actually want the book. So 24 sales here, and just to go over to my dashboard on my Amazon account. So what we can see here is actually the top selling book so far for me this month is that we've had 46 sales overall. So 20 sales are coming from the ads and 46 overall, meaning that of course I'm actually making sales organically just through virtue of this book now being placed higher in the organic rankings because I'm sending ads to it. Okay, so if I hadn't sent ads to this book, we could be sitting on maybe 0 sales here. We're not sure. I'm going to make the assumption here that this is a good thing and that the Amazon ads is working and pushing the listings up the rankings. So is it possible for me to tell how well this book would have done had it not had ads run to it? Probably not. But when I first released the book, it was on page 8 or 9 for the keyword that I was trying to target. Once it got to the first page, I started to see more sales to this book. So we're going to make the assumption here that running ads, even if we don't directly make money from them, we think that in the long run, this is actually good because it's bumping us up the rankings and we're making more organic sales from that. Okay, so if you're going to be running ads to your books, then I'd recommend that you start running ads as soon as you can in order to start getting ranked higher before the Q4 sales start coming in. Because obviously you want our books to be ranked higher when more people start coming on Amazon to start buying for Christmas. Okay, so I think you should start doing that now. If you're breaking even on your ads, I would leave them running. If you're losing lots of money, I would cut that off as soon as you can, or at least try and optimize the ads. And then over the next couple months, I think it's a good idea to keep tweaking and testing your existing ads, put out new ads for new books, see how they perform, and just try and get your book ranked higher as soon as you can for Q4. Okay, so in terms of what type of book I'm going to be making, like I say, it's going to be a few low content books and then focus on some niche specific coloring books and activity books. I'm not going to be working, I don't think, on any high content books during this period of the year. I don't necessarily think that these are the type of books that we should put so much time into when people aren't necessarily going to be buying them for Christmas, whereas they might be buying them throughout the rest of the year. I do think we should focus on things that people are going to be buying for Christmas, and that is those type of gifty books like low content books and coloring books. Okay, so that's it for this video. I know it's been quite a long one, but I hope it has helped you make some decisions for your Q4 pursuits, and I'll see you in more videos very soon.